NLAW, is it a success or failure? A month and a half before the Ukrainian-Russian war, Britain decided to supply Ukraine with light anti-tank defensive weapons systems. The supply of these weapons only intensified with the outbreak of hostilities. On April 7th at a briefing, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said, quoting, "For every Russian tank in Ukraine, the United States will provide or has already provided 10 anti-tank systems. And if we consider the contribution from the Allies, then it will be almost 90 anti-tank systems per tank. And it was Britain that provided almost 80 such systems per tank. So, what are these systems? And do they prove their worth with the war with the second army of the world, the Russian army?" We're talking about NLAW, Next Generation Light Anti-Tank Weapon. The man-portable anti-tank missile system is a joint Swedish-British design. The development of the complex was carried out in the early 2000s. The developers were the military division of the large industrial concern Saab on the Swedish side, and the British branch of the Thales group of companies on the UK side. The anti-tank complex went into serial production in 2009, and it is now in service with about 10 countries of the world. The main operators are the UK and Sweden. NLAW was also acquired by Finland, Switzerland, Malaysia, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, and a number of other countries. At the start of the production, the British Army's need for new light anti-tank weapons was estimated at 20,000 units. What is this weapon from a technical perspective, and why has it become the main tool in the fight of Ukrainian troops against Russian tanks? Although NLAW is called a third-generation anti-tank complex, which means it implements the fire-and-forget concept, in its technical essence, it is an intermediate link between conventional rocket-propelled anti-tank grenade launchers, with a range of 200 to 300 meters, and anti-tank missile systems that can destroy tanks at a distance of 1.5 to 3 miles. The NLAW, which has been in service with the Swedish and British Army since 2009, has been able to hit a target at a distance of up to 600 meters. But after updating the software since 2015, the range has increased to 800 meters. Yes, this Swedish-British anti-tank weapon has a computer, so it's still closer to the advanced American Javelin than to the simplest Russian RPG-22 or RPG-28 rocket-propelled grenade. The presence of a computer allows NLAW to implement the fire-and-forget principle. The rocket of the complex is equipped with an inertial control system that compensates for the impact of the external environment. At the same time, the shooter received a tool that facilitates shooting at moving targets, predicted line of sight, abbreviated as PLOS. It is enough for the operator to perform a 3-second target tracking and then shoot. During tracking, the complex equipment activates the missile's inertial system, independently calculating the parameters of the target's movement and predicting the impact point. Thanks to this, an NLAW operator has no need to independently consider corrections for range, wind, and target speed. At the same time, the operator can choose one of two types of target destruction, again thanks to the computer. The first is direct attack, traditional for anti-tank rocket launchers. The rocket flies straight along the line of sight, and the explosion comes from a contact fuse. The second mode, overfly top attack, hitting the target from above. It is designed to deal with well-armored targets, primarily modern main battle tanks, with multi-layered homogeneous rolled armor, covered from above with dynamic protection units, plus active protection. Tanks have minimal protection from above. For example, the main Russian tank, used in the war with Ukraine, the T-72B3, has a thickness in the frontal part of the tower equivalent to 750 millimeters of homogeneous steel, and only a couple of tens of millimeters on top. In addition, the attack mode from above allows the shooter to hit targets located behind cover, terrain, folds, standing in caponiers or in trenches. This feature is available at a distance of 20 meters, which makes it ideal for the closest combat, when the tank can be behind cover. At the same time, the operator of the complex does not even have to see the target completely. It's enough that only a small fragment of the tank is visible. As you can see, having two attack modes in this regard, the NLAW complex is almost similar to the famous FGM-148 Javelin. Why almost? There's a difference that reduces the combat properties of the Swedish-British product, but let's hold the intrigue a little and discuss that in detail later. In the meantime, let's continue the story about the technical characteristics of NLAW. The mass of the complex is 12.4 kilograms. This is a rocket plus a launcher in the form of a pipe. The weight of the tandem cumulative armor-piercing warhead is 1.8 kilograms. This provides armor penetration of around 1,000 millimeters of homogeneous steel. We'll talk about armor penetration later. Everything is not so simple here. And now let's finish the story about the technical characteristics of NLAW. The initial speed of the rocket is 40 meters per second. The maximum is 200 meters per second. It covers a distance of 600 meters in 2.5 seconds. You probably noticed that the rocket has two speeds. This is due to the peculiarities of its launch. In order to ensure firing from confined spaces and not injure the operator and nearby military personnel, the rocket has two solid propellant engines. After pressing the launch button, the first engine is turned on, which takes the rocket out of the container at a speed of 40 meters per second. A second later, when the rocket is at a safe distance from the operator, the first engine is discarded, and the main propulsion engine is turned on. To further reduce the exhaust, the developers applied the technique that they used in the RPG AT-4CS anti-tank rocket launcher. At the back of the launch canister, they placed a massive saline solution that absorbs the flames when fired. And here we're getting how the NLAW attack mode's different from the Javelin attack modes. First, the height that the rocket is gaining. In Javelin, in straight attack mode, the missile still does not move along the line of sight, as in NLAW, but rises to a height of 60 meters, and from there dives at the target. But this you see is not a fundamental difference, but there is also a fundamental one, in the mode of attacking the target from above. Javelin, having risen to a height of 150 meters, maintains it while approaching the target, and then dives at it vertically. But NLAW has a fundamentally different scheme. Having risen to a small altitude, far from 150 meters, the missile above the target does not dive vertically at it. It doesn't change direction at all. At the moment of flight over the target, a magnetic sensor is triggered and detonates the warhead in a certain way. It is designed in such a way that it can fire not only along the axis of the rocket, as in the case of a straight-line attack and the triggering of a contact fuse, but perpendicular to the axis. Of course, in this case, there's no question of any penetration of 1,000 millimeters of homogeneous armor. After all, in this case, a tandem scheme for firing ammunition is not implemented, when the first charge destroys dynamic protection, and the second burns through the armor. Here, from a rocket, which is located above the target at a certain height, a jet of flames escapes, which hits the armor. But in this case, the maximum thickness of the burnt steel decreases sharply. The developer says it's about 50 millimeters. It seems to us that it's even less. This is seen in the video of the tests of this complex. There was no visible damage to the target, but you can say that samples without ammunition load were used during the tests. Maybe the jet of flame from the cumulative charge of the rocket still pierced the armor, and the tank would be disabled in a real battle. Well, let's show you the video of the real fight. Here you see an episode of a clash in the already legendary Mariupol between a Russian T-72 tank and an NLAW anti-tank system, which was used by a fighter of the Ukrainian Azov regiment from an ambush on the third floor of the house. Here you see that the fired rocket hit the tank from above, and it went on. Therefore, reasonable criticism is heard from a number of experts, paying tribute and appreciating the effectiveness of using a smart sight in the complex, which automatically calculates corrections for weather conditions and lead on a moving target, which significantly improves shooting accuracy and simplifies preparation for a shot. They note the irrationality of putting forward a requirement for complexes of such an intermediate class for the possibility of hitting a tank hidden behind a breastwork, which necessitated the possibility of an attack from above. And this forced the designers to make the missile controllable, which dramatically increased its cost. One NLAW set cost £20,000, or $27,000 in 2008, or around £28,000, $37,000 for 2022, adjusted for pound and dollar inflation. Of course, this is significantly cheaper than the same FGM-148 Javelin, with a price tag of $246,000. But at the same time, it is much more expensive than conventional rocket-propelled anti-tank grenades. For example, a good German Panzerfaust 3 IT-600, having a weight of 15.2 kilograms and a target range of 600 meters, costs a little over $5,000. That is, for the price of one NLAW, you can buy 7 Panzerfaust 3 IT-600. Is it justified? It turns out that an additional $30,000 is paid for the ability to hit a target located behind the wall, an increase in range by 200 meters, more reliable aiming, and the ability of the operator to immediately leave the firing point after launch. And what? Is it not enough? More chances for a soldier to survive, and more chances to hit a target that costs several $1,000,000, and most importantly, the one which brings death to you and your comrades. But be that as it may, thousands of NLAWs are now fighting against Russian tanks, and time will tell how effective they were. What do you think about this Swedish-British weapon? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss reviews of modern military equipment.